Hello, hello. Welcome in. I'm just tidying up a little bit here. Hello, welcome in. I'm just trying to find one square inch that's not covered with paints and bits here in the studio today. Well, we got to another Friday. I hope everybody had a chance to make a little bit of art this week and that you're doing well, or better than well. I got new paints, and if you were here on our last couple of live streams, I've been getting those paints swatched so I can see what they look like on paper. And of course, when you get started on that, then you remember 6 other projects that you wanted to chip away on. And the curiosity always gets fired up a little bit to try some new things. So the direction my curiosity went this week was to explore some granulating watercolors. And I'm guessing some of you might know what granulating watercolors are. And just very quickly, because not everybody knows or remembers, watercolors are made up of a ground up pigment, a binder like gum arabic, and usually some other ingredients like wetting agents and preservatives and a little of this, a little of that, but fairly simple. And those pigments are varied. They could be man-made chemicals, they could be pigments ground from the earth, they could be, or mined from the earth and then ground up. If you're using ivory black, that traditionally is made of charred animal bone. So all kinds of different things can go into paint, and each of those things has different particle sizes, and when you suspend them in water, sometimes they like to clump together, And if you make a big enough of a pool of water for them, those particles to float around in, sometimes they just like to do what chemicals do and hold hands and turn into bigger little clumps. And then they precipitate out, and they like to find their way to the depressions in the watercolor paper, and it just can make some really wonderful effects. So I was working on a bigger composition that used all kinds of bright colors. Well, bright for earthy tones. I think they're certainly not like comic book bright, but anyway, not quite sure what I'm going to work on tonight, but I think since I have about 7 projects going, I think we can find something. Good evening, Dan K. Welcome in. How was your week? Get those cars rolling, rolling, rolling. I got out my stash of watercolors, and I realized I have a bunch of tubes of watercolor that have not made it onto my swatch board. So here's that beautiful cadmium orange that you liked. I got into the stash, got into the hoard, and found a handful of other bright and lovely colors. So it always helps to have the swatches on one page so I can compare and see what the colors look like in relation to one another. So maybe we'll bring that along. Now, watercolors come in several forms. They come in a tube, little tubes, so the watercolor's fairly wet. You squeeze it out and use it directly, or just dilute it with a little bit of water. They also come in pans where they're semi-moist, and that's kind of my go-to. I like that. It's sort of a middle-of-the-road formulation. And then, like the classic kids ones, they come in these dried tablets that are they're kind of they can be a challenge to wet. The ones that come in, these are called half pans. They have a bit of moisture in them, so they wet fairly readily. They don't spill. They travel pretty well. And I have been busy getting things out of tubes, because the tubes tend to, over time, they can dry, the paints can dry in the tubes, and then you can't squeeze them out. So I've managed to get all kinds of colors out of their tubes and into some new little containers. Just swatch the daylights out of everything. Yeah, those school sets still work really well. They take a bit of time and a little bit of elbow grease to get the water and the paint mixed. Well, that needed an N. I'm a little bit fried. I spent the afternoon on a live stream with Eric Rader today, so that's always um, that's always a lot of fun doing some art. But we get a few people up on the panel, and um, I mostly spend my time trying to keep the cat off the workbench. And try to remember to talk to the humans while I'm doing the art. I am trying to clear a little bit of space so that I can do a pebble drawing, and I think that will help settle me in. Yes, it was a nice time. It was. Yeah, I'm showing my work, I think. I want to get all these guys labeled before I forget what I've done, and I think this is the last one. Oh my gosh, I saw a beautiful 32, looked like about a 1932 Chevy maybe, all done in this metal flake mint green. And it hadn't had the top chopped, which, I mean, uh, they chopped so many of the tops with the 1930s cars, and beautiful chrome, super high polished wire wheels on the wheels of the cars in that era were pretty good size, so it was had some sun shining down on that thing, and fellow looked to be in his probably mid somewhere between 65 and 73, I suppose. Was kind of fun to see that out and about. We got here raw umber hue. Yeah, it looked like it was a trailer baby. Like it was just absolutely pristine. The paint job was um it was just absolutely gorgeous. And I do go to car shows now and again, and it was such a distinctive color, this beautiful, almost like the green of Andes Mints candy, like that pale green, but um, like a fine metal flake, not like big, but definitely like a little sparkly, a little glittery, and he was at McDonald's of all places, which is probably, once you spend all your money on car restoration, that might explain McDonald's. Okay, this is the last one. Exactly. So I think if I had seen it at one of the car shows, and it had Oregon plates, so it was local, I think I would have noticed it. Just kind of cool. So sometimes it doesn't seem like you're actually working, but stuff's getting done, so. So I started one in yeah. Started one in some colors that I think will be kind of fun to add that orange into. Didn't really leave much room for the indigo violet blue, but we'll see. I do like to work 15 colors into just a small area. I also knocked out a couple of pebble drawings earlier today. Really love the colors on this one. I think that'll be the top. Like 4x6. Yeah. I do have some postcard size blanks. They're just waiting for a bit of inspiration, and you never know. You never know when you might feel like just drawing some trees or wreaths or pine cones. Okay. Hello there. Welcome in, Liza. How are you? How was your week? What's going on for the weekend? You had homework and yeah, this is the other one I did during the live earlier today. Okay. Try to got my palette right here, just out of sight, so I want to keep my sleeve out of it. Liza made the volleyball team. Is that what I'm reading here? Congratulations. Um, Dan, I would have to. I don't want you to post any. Don't put your email address in the chat. That's not cool. I'm working on getting an email account for. Where's that tiny piece of paper I looked for 5 minutes earlier today? Squirrel. Um, I'm working on getting an email account just for my channel here, and once I do that, then you'll have a way to communicate things like addresses and, you know, the important back channel chit chat. So in the last couple of days, I know I didn't go live yesterday. I was just working on stuff, and um, in the 2 months that I've been at this, my view count is now over 10,000 views. So I'm very grateful for everybody who comes in and hangs out and spends time and, has a gander at stuff, because um, I just didn't expect that I could break 100 subscribers and get to 10,000 views in such a short time. So thank you guys for that. Oh, Liza, you definitely will do that. That's just part of learning. And, somebody will probably bop it right into you backwards too. That's just, yeah, that's okay. I think there are very few people who are actually killed by a volleyball. Probably, probably a few freak accidents here and there, but I won't say nobody, but pretty much just about nobody. Yeah, that's kind of the excitement of it, that it just, once you learn the skills, just all of the directions that a skilled volleyball player can make that ball go, it's pretty amazing. I guess it's like maybe the fake outs, when they get those dialed in and it looks like they're going to hit it one way, and then the last second they send it clear to the other side of the court. Or you think they're going to put it over the net and they set it up for one of their teammates to just, what's it called when they spike it, just like right over the, yeah. I tried out for volleyball. I really wanted to play volleyball, and I didn't make the team. I was kind of upset about that for about a week until the basketball tryouts, and then I made the basketball team. And turns out that the girls that were on the basketball team were a nicer group than the girls that were on the volleyball team, so it ended up being a better fit. Badminton. Do you have school badminton teams? Nice. Well, all of these years later, I look back and I'm glad that I played sports when I was in school. I've got a lot of happy memories around those activities. I think about the rest of school, and it was okay. It wasn't particularly bad, but the year I was a senior in high school, um, both the girls and the boys teams were state champions, so we were 18 years old and thought we ruled the world. Well, now my brain is just thinking back on high school instead of thinking about my drawing, but I also remembered the art department and the art teachers, and that was pretty cool too. There's Maya. I see the blue pop up out of the corner of my eye, and I still always just have to, like, sit back up and look and see, and I should just know blue is going to be Maya. Good to see you. I noticed I am getting, like, I had kind of a breakthrough with the speed, and I cranked through 3 of them on the live feed earlier with Eric, and this, like, it's not an advantage because I just had like 3 picked out for the whole stretch of it, and I got done, and then I had to figure out something else to do, which I did. I painted some background, so it worked out okay, but I had just noticed, oh, somewhere along the line in the last week or so, have made a quantum leap in my speed at getting these guys inked out. So how are you, Maya? It seems like the week has rushed by and we haven't had a chance to catch up and talk. And I think it was just 5 minutes ago when I said, "Hey, let's yes to joining you on a panel," and the week just went skedaddling right by, didn't it? Sorry about that. Oh, I hope you guys can't hear the traffic. There's a large town nearby, and on the weekends they've been running these law enforcement operations to cut down on the street takeovers where the young people like to drift and spin the cars in circles and just shut down the roads. And every time law enforcement does one of these shutdowns on the drag racing and speed racing and shenanigans, all of the cars end up just hitting the interstate and then bopping down to my town where they've made themselves a circuit through town, and I lived kind of near one of the ends of where they run through with their cars that they all seem to want to change their exhaust so that they pop when they downshift. Maybe Dan, maybe you can explain what is that about? It just sounds like it's blowing out their mufflers and like kids, those are not JDM cars. Just go do your homework or something. I don't know. They have to be out driving around making all that noise, but one's been kind of circling the block here, and all I can hear is pop, 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 pop. Sometimes when you feel like you're catching cold, if you can get some vitamin D and some vitamin C, and make sure you don't get yourself overtired, and sometimes you can fight that off. I always know I'm about to get a cold. I start craving fruit. I'll think, I want an orange, and I just had an apple and a banana and some berries, and I mean, you know, fruit's good for you. It's a good thing to be eating. Okay. Thanks for stopping in and spending a little time with us, and congratulations again on making the volleyball team. You get some rest. Let's see. Four, 3, 2, 1, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. That's 7 a.m. my time. So sometimes I wake up really early. But I haven't been in the last week, so I don't know. I hope you guys both know that, like, when I don't pop in, it's because I'm sleeping or maybe out running errands that require driving. Otherwise, you guys are a couple of the, I mean, you know, we all have priorities in what we watch. So if I see my arty friends doing a stream, I'll always put that at the top of my watch list and pop in and say hello. Do you have a few minutes to hang around, Maya? I want to show you some little studies I did with granulating colors, but I want to be disciplined and finish this drawing before I go squirreling away. Go squirrel chasing across the workbench again. So Dan, it's down to not having good taste. That's what I thought it was. It's so aggravating to be here and just know that, like, every time I see a press release for that other jurisdiction, I just know it just drives all of these guys down here, and so it's not solving the problem, it's just displacing it onto the smaller outlying communities. So I kind of wish that the law enforcement agencies would cooperate so that if it's no racing on Friday nights, it ought to be no racing anywhere. And they'll go. These guys they'll still be racing at 5, 6 in the morning. So I wasn't too sure about this one when I started. I wasn't seeing a lot of obvious pebbles, but I like it. Oh, what happened here? Yeah, I'm on the West Coast, Maya. 9 hours from where you are. Um, you know, I can't see the time on my phone, and the clock is behind me in the other room. So sometime before midnight, sometime in the 11 o'clock hour. Uh, 3, 3, 4. West Coast, Mountain, Central, East Coast. But then, like, I keep it straight until you have to factor in daylight savings, and then okay, so I think 4 hours difference from East Coast to West Coast. Drives a truck with a Hemi. Nice. Well, I got curious about the granulating colors, and so I did a little Googling, did a little research to see what I could learn, and if I could find any granulating colors in among the myriad tubes of stuff I already have, and found out I had a whole assortment of things that were granulating. So I really like this. So I was also, as you know, when one does cruise through the land of Google, then when you come back to YouTube, it starts feeding you all kinds of video suggestions about what you were looking at, because of course the internet is always up in your business. And so I ran across a painter who was doing these pebbly circles, and it just hers were arranged a little bit differently, so I thought I would adapt that and kind of combine it. And yeah, and the way she did her exercise, she ran her pebbles deliberately onto, with the edges touching, so that the colors, well, you get colors that dominate, right? So it's good to know which ones will kind of rush in and take over. And the ultramarine, it was making some moves on. I think that's just I think that's just a mixture there. I don't think it's any particular color. And once I started, it was so much fun. I was intending to do them as swatches, which means I have to pay attention to which colors are going and then make some notations. And then I was just having so much fun playing with it that I just went, well, swatch later. Paint now, swatch later. I can't recall her name right now, but I can, I'll put, maybe I'll throw up a community post and throw a link to her channel. I think she's painting in the Cornwall area in Great Britain, in England, so. Yeah, it just sort of depends on, yeah, I don't think I can get this entire thing into and it's still in the blocks. I got my paper going everywhere here. Yeah, I know this was a Viridian, and this is Naples yellow, Hooker's green light, burnt sienna, cobalt blue, indigo, and I think I've got a sap green in here, and this bright orange is vermilion. So, oh, I've also got Terra Verde here. So this had lovely dark spots there in that burnt sienna. Yeah, so the other factor that comes into this is whichever one has more water on the surface. So I start in the upper corner and then tried to move around so that it didn't necessarily look like a progression. But in general, started at the top, finished at the bottom. So where there's more water, of course, that'll pull in it. The paint will diffuse into it. So, and that was one of the things that she was doing, and so I thought, well, I'll see what I can learn about how my paints behave. And I don't love it. I mean, I like some of the effects are really cool, but some of the other ones just I'm trying to resist saying they look like mistakes. They're not mistakes, but I don't I wouldn't have painted them that way deliberately, but the next step will be to add some acrylics on top and some markers, and maybe I'll even use some India ink on a dip pen. And I think once the other layers of the multimedia are on these, then I'm going to be very pleased with them. So Dan had mentioned earlier something about holiday cards, and I think with just a little bit of a switch up, these could, a little bit, switching the colors up a little bit, I think these could look like, almost like a box of shiny bright ornaments, Christmas tree ornaments. And then I could bring in some metallics and just drew the little metal cap that goes on those. So I have been just busy at workbench last couple days, even though I haven't been streaming. I did some more color swatches for the metallic paints. And remember this swatch set? We did this the other night. And I added some of the opal colors and the pearl colors on top to see how those would look with the other paints. And that pearl is it's very obvious. The opal is a stripe that runs along the bottom, and it is much more subtle. But I think that's going to be just a lot of fun for adding accents to things, especially holiday cards. When we were working on these swatches, I had lamented that there wasn't a purple included in the set, and had been musing that I thought that we could get a nice lavendery purple mixing the pink and the cobalt blue, and I'm pretty pleased with it. They did mix together very well. The pigments didn't separate out, so that was a little bit more on the swatching of the specialty gansai tambi from the other night. The bright blue at the top is a nice color. When you say the bright blue at the top is nice, this one? Yeah. Oh, on the bigger sheet. On this bigger sheet? Or the bigger sheet? My favorite out of them was, I like this kind of teal oceany blue. And I also like the green with a bit of, I mean, it's color. I like it all. Okay, so the really big, this one? If it's this blue, that's cobalt blue. And that is, that one is a little bit of a mixture of ultramarine blue and cobalt. Colors. So this, I've been, the gansai tambi run down here, and then I've been filling in with colors out of the stash, so. I know it's hard to see. I'll post a bigger picture of this on the community page. I've got the phone locked into the stand, and if I lift it up, what you will see is the bottom of the stand before, or I'll have to work on trying to get another way to give you a better view during these live streams, but yeah, greens and I think what I'm noticing on this is that the gansai tambi have a bit of a sheen to them and a luminosity that the watercolors don't have. It's just a different formulation. So now I know when I paint to use the watercolors for the background washes and then do the points of interest with the gansai tambi, because they pop off the page a little bit more, and they've got a beautiful, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's just a little bit of a sheen to it because of the binder that's used. So lots of options there. Yeah, I'm kind of working my way through the pebble drawings, and now I'm reaching the point where I'm trying to decide what to do with them now that I have a big stack of them. And I could just leave them sitting on the corner of the workbench, or I could figure out what to do with them. I ran across a press release yesterday for an art show that happens over in Central Oregon at the High Desert Museum. where one of the local galleries sponsors this, and um, it's an art show that's held at the High Desert Museum. And the premise is that nothing costs, everything that's sold at the show goes for $20. And this year they had 6,000 entries for this 3-day art show. And they quite often get really close, if not absolutely sell out of everything. And I thought, maybe these guys, next year I will think about doing an entry, because I think this would be a pretty nice little painting for $20. So that's a thought. And, once you fully explore a subject, and I think I've pretty fully explored the 3 by 3 inch world of pebble drawing here. I My creative mind wants to evolve to whatever the next step is going to be. So I don't know if it's going to be this necessarily, but it'll be something. So, questions. What do you guys want to hang out a bit longer? We could knock out another pebble drawing, I think, if you like. I can find a background that's ready to, yeah, there's one. And I think I'm gonna think about these guys. I've got some ideas starting to bubble up on what to do with these, but if you just let your creative mind work away on it, sometimes it'll come up with an answer. And when you press forward without knowing what direction you might want to head, it can be a lot more experimentation. So, and that's okay too. But right now, my creativity is running in such a way that I know that I'm gonna have a pretty good inspired idea here if I just give it a couple of days or a few hours. Well, hello, Brad. Well, once I stopped mocking up my own reactive mind, it went a little better, Maya. What's going on? You made it through a week. Made it to the weekend. Let's see. It's midnight. It's like 8 a.m. Must be about tea time there for you, Brad, right? Well, not tea time, but time to have a cup of tea with Breggy. Tea is like 4 p.m., right? I always think tea ought to be at about 11, but that's when 11s are. Right? I just picked up a couple boxes of one of my favorites. There's a blend called Lady Grey. And it's got just enough. I don't think it's got bergamot. I don't think it's not exactly like Earl Grey. But it's one of those teas that it never gets bitter if you leave the tea bag in, and don't have a heart attack. I know you probably brew loose leaf there. But I know sometimes when I say I use tea in bags, gasp. Yep. I'd buy it loose leaf if I could, but I can only seem to find it in tea bags, and then my brain goes squirreling away, squirrel chasing. I come back 20 minutes later and there's still a tea bag in the hot water, and so I like a tea that doesn't get bitter if it gets ignored. Pancakes. It's one of the pleasures of a weekend, having enough time to have pancakes. Hey, has anybody seen Fiona Galbraith around? I haven't seen her in what seems like about 3 weeks, so at least not in the chat, so I do think of you guys. That is one of the lovely things about just having a kind of a small chat. Oh, hello there. So I figured out part of the issue with the low quality was that there was a lag in processing with YouTube. The video will upload, but then it processes, and I'm not exactly sure all that entails, but YouTube seems to do some rendering, and so it allows a really low resolution version of a live to be up, and usually that happens, processing happens pretty quickly. And I had one video that was taking 3 days to work its way through the processing, and it was one of the shorter, you'd kind of expect that if it was one of the 3-hour live streams, but I think it was one that was about 45 minutes. And during that time, that processing, there's a couple of things that happen. It seems to prepare the transcript and the closed captions, as well as process the live chat replay. So I know I had expressed some frustration at the low resolution and the kind of grainy fuzziness of it, and the other part of that is that I was getting when I get my hand in the picture, my camera in my phone wants to, I guess it always defaults to try to go to the human subject instead of what's down here. Oh. Well, It's the 01. I prefer to do them in the 03, but I picked up the pen I was using for labels, so I will finish this out with the 01. It's tiny. Yep. Yeah, you know, a few minutes ago I thought, my lines are looking kind of extra fine. I like to come in and do the tiny little pebbles with this smaller pen, but I also have 05s, so I work with all three of those. And every once in a while, I've got some Copic fine liners that are ridiculously like 005, I think. Something stupidly small. Nope. Yeah, that 005, it makes the tiniest little eyelash of a line, which sometimes that's what you want. But I think there's an 07, and the 07 is really close to a Sharpie ultra fine. But I like the 05 quite a bit. But it can be, the 05 can be kind of overpowering on these smaller ones, so the 03 works pretty well. And then I also did this one recently using the sepia tone, and I like that really well. This is a sepia tone 03, and I like that on these warmer colorways. The black was just looking really harsh, so it still looks very neutral. It doesn't, sometimes sepia can look brown, but I thought I was really pleased with how that turned out, so I can give the thumbs up recommendation on sepia in these micron pens. So how's your weather holding there in the UK, Brad? We're kind of coming into fall. Are you getting a splash of rain yet, or getting some of those nice fall days? I like those. When the weather starts getting a little cooler and there's a little snap to the air, and trees start to think about changing their colors. Annoyed Cricket Helmet, hello there. Good to see you. Dan, good night. Get some rest. You put in a good week, and it was lovely to see you in the chat. SEPIA. You could go multimedia with sepia. Let's see, I don't think I've seen you work in pencil, but there's a nice sepia in the Prismacolor line with colored pencil. Ink is always an option. And Copic, I know, has sepia in its range. So you could go that whole multimedia route, and then if you're using ink, you can use that in a wash as well. So 34. Oh, that's a little bit brisk. It's not like a snow wall with a ladder outside the front door, but that's pretty chill. It's definitely get out the gloves weather at that temperature. Maya says it's 39 degrees, somewhere between 34 and 39 in northern Norway. I ran an errand today. I went to the art supply store. And it was, let's see, I didn't spend $50. I just bought containers. I bought little containers so that I could get the dried paints out of the tubes, and got out the old tube wringer and just emptied those suckers out. And then I bored poor Dan was here for 10 minutes with me shuffling off stuff, and I processed a bunch of tubes and put them into containers and did little swatches for all of these guys today. So now I can see just exactly which red, because they're all different, right? And then yellows in the tubes, I don't know. I just do better using my supplies when I can see them. So, yeah, I went through a bunch of stuff today. Swatched out the roses and pinks, and had a handful of them that were just in such a disastrous dried, crumbled state that I've got them soaking in water. So it doesn't usually take a full week, but I'll just give them a stir a couple of times a day with a toothpick, and then let the water evaporate off of them until they're down to a semi-moist state. And then we can get them from crumbles back into something that looks like this. So it's very usable. And yeah, I've got a few more over there, but that was a pretty good afternoon. And so now I feel like I've got bonus new paint to that'll feel like it's just right at hand, because I can just glance and have a look right at what it is. Umber is really close to sepia. If you really want to get it to sepia, or like if that's your goal, I mean, your goal might be I just want to work in a monotone brown tone, in which case umber will get you there. Burnt sienna also kind of in that neighborhood. But you can add just a touch of I would probably use ivory black if you had it, like a warm black. Or Maya's really good at mixing. She might have a suggestion if you really want to truly get to a Brad. If you're gonna be saucy, it better be spaghetti sauce. Oh, I just noticed the sound of raindrops on the roof. And it's really nice. It's muffling out those people that are drag racing up and down the road nearby, so I do like how the water, how the rain and the change of season dampens down the sharp sounds that come with summer. It's been kind of a loud summer here. My ears are ready for some peace and quiet. It is considered a bit rude where I'm at, Maya, but I don't know. Don't know exactly how it's construed in the UK, but since it's Brad, and he does tend to be a bit naughty from time to time. I'm such a fan of color. I do work in monochromatic palettes from time to time. Especially like in photography, back when remember the days when we had a dark room and black and white film? And I do, I think there's a lot of, you, you get a lot of good out of working in a monochromatic palette. It really helps you to sharpen up your line and your contrast skills. And, and when you're working with, especially like I'm doing with just this riot of all the colors I can get into the space, I do notice that um, sometimes these, especially these smaller works, suffer from not having a good balance of negative space and not having enough lights and darks to really have a good an image that resolves visually quickly. So it keeps us sharp when we work in just either a limited range, limited palette, or else in a monochrome shades of gray or shades and tints of one color. Oh, I'll and, you know, Maya, I think could be a particularly American thing, and I'll just send you an email and tell you. How's that for an answer? Oh, I don't know if you guys had a chance to check in on Eric's stream earlier, but I think we spent the first 45 minutes talking about cannabis, and then um, it evolved into discussing the um, differences in United States versus European sex workers, and just it kind of it kind of went into it just went into some territory that doesn't usually go into, but uh, everybody was behaving themselves in chat, getting along, and there wasn't any drama, so I always appreciate that. Alrighty. Wow, I think I'm really pleased with the group of drawings from today. Yeah, check out those. Some nice colors on these bad boys. Managed to crank out a couple of backgrounds. And 27 tubes of paint decanted into new containers, so. Yeah. Yeah, it was just, it felt like, you know, every once in a while, I mean, I think we all to the, come to the palette and paintbrush and we walk away going, oh, I couldn't get anything to match. I couldn't get it to work. And then every once in a while you have a day where stuff just turns out in a pleasing way. It was this was a group of granulating colors. The green, it got mottled and it had some really interesting effects. So we've got Hooker's green light, and then there's a few splashes of sap green. And the sap green was one that I hadn't realized was a granulating color, and so it played nicely. And then some drops of the burnt sienna in there. So I was, I like how the little edges of the paint feather out in those areas, so I will come back and work with that combination again. And got a cadmium yellow light and I found a vintage tube of Permasol pink. You can't even buy that anymore. And it's got a lovely, almost a coral quality to it, so I'm going to try that in some mixes and see how that goes. Randy Rabbit, hello, hello. And what do we have here? Vermilion, I think. And gamboge. So, feeling the fall coming in. Randy, I do. I live in Oregon on the west coast of the United States. Aren't you? You're East Coast, right? Do I recall correctly? The color is literally, Brad asks if he wants to work in sepia, what color does he buy? This is going to be sepia is what you're going to want to buy. And I mean, even Prismacolor's colored pencil is called sepia, literally. It is a good old classic color from way back, so yeah, here's a little bit of that tube. Permasol pink. I don't know where these guys came from. They were in my grandmother's stash of paints, and the labels look 1950s, maybe 1960s. So I couldn't find any information on good old Google about that. Yeah, I'm fumbling around here because I'm looking for if I can get my hands on a tube of yeah, okay, here you go. See, it's just so you should be able to find it in any kind of, and it's a classic ink color, so you should definitely be able to find it in ink, and I believe it's a waterproof ink. Watercolors, acrylics, a whole world of sepia awaits you. Okay. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, like, what is the key to these guys? And I absolutely deliberately overwork them. I mean, I overwork them with the paint. I come back in with the brush and water, and I soften all the lines. Then I throw on some of those gel crayons or colored pencils or watercolor pencil or the Neocolor 2. I mean, I think that might be something that is a difference because you are a really skilled watercolorist. So one thing I notice about your paintings is you don't overwork your watercolors, and that's like overworking is generally considered something you don't want to do. I'm doing it here deliberately to get that effect, to create this deep saturated, textured effect. I mean, I wonder, I wonder sometimes if I like, I wonder sometimes if maybe I shouldn't be using something like an acrylic, but I do like the capacity watercolor has to be changed and altered by coming in on it again and again and again. So if you're trying to get to this, probably what's hanging you up is your natural talent not to overwork the watercolor, if that makes any sense. So yeah, just maybe throw more layers, and don't be afraid to grab a white pencil and go over it, because you'll notice on some of these I'll start with stuff that looks really almost harsh. I mean, there's a lot going on in this early stages of it. And then I'll come back in and just put more layers and more layers and more layers. I mean, a ridiculous number of layers. And then I'll tone it down using the white Neocolor. And I will use it as a crayon. I'll rub it in. And then I will also, like, not really like put a wash of water on it, but mist it gently, and then just, again, just overwork the daylights out of it. So you might just try going a little bit more gonzo with the layers of media, and see if that gets you to a more rich, lush background. And then, of course, once you have that lush background, then the pen just breaks it up again. So I don't know. I hope those will be helpful tips. Oh, in this one? Or, oh, the green one. Yeah. In this. Yes. I didn't soak the watercolor paper too much. I took, actually, because I do kind of get the mister going. Yeah, the paint was just, it's very fluid, and it's one of the things that came out of the tube that was super dry. So it got a very liquid mixture of the paint. So that helped it to just flow like crazy into the open areas. So it's a Randy says it's a late night. Yeah, I'm an owl. Brad, when you use what you have now, but when you go to just buy a tube of paint, bump up to that next grade. I noticed. Okay, so Cotman makes, or Winsor and Newton makes one. I'm not sure if they still package it this way, but they're just their intermediate grade, where it's not $13 a tube. As I was swatching the watercolors that I was working with, I had quite a few Cotman tubes in here, and I just noticed they don't make. I really had to struggle to get a nice wash with almost every single Cotman color I had, and comparing the pigments, the brightness and the vibrancy, just that next step up, it's just quite a lot better. So I think you are working at a level where you deserve to just have a little bit of an upgrade on your materials. So I would encourage you to go ahead and don't feel like you have to stick with Cotman to expand your colors, because most watercolors will work. They'll intermix with each other for your blends across the grades. So, and the ones that I absolutely had the most joy with making my swatches were the artist grade Winsor and Newton. They were just just beautiful. If you like, if even if you only just buy a tube of the French ultramarine, it is just so lovely to work with. I think you'll really enjoy that. Oh, I am fine. I was working, I was taking these tubes apart, and I had that thought of, and I haven't cut myself for years, but I was using the good old X-Acto knife, and I looked at it and I thought, boy, that's sharp. I should really be careful not to cut myself with that. And about 5 minutes later, I just lost the grip and just gave myself a good old stab. And of course, like there was paint everywhere, so it was a whole. I just went in and just got it all cleaned out, and um, I thought, oh my god, now I've just run toxic 1950s paint into my body. But like today, it doesn't even hurt. It's so I'm okay. I'm just klutzy. And it was, it was completely one of those, like, as soon as my brain brought it up, I was like, well, thank you. That'll just be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And what I should have done right then is just put the cap on the pen and moved on. And no, I just had to stab myself in the finger. Just, I'd say live and learn, but I just. Okay, what is PBR7? Is that in lamp black, or I was just looking at those today. Yeah, I like that we're finally talking about colors with these, like in a very specific way of talking about colors. Oh, that's Maya is using the color codes PBR7 and PBK7 as the admixture for sepia, and I noticed some of the tubes of paint I have specify. Yeah, here's an example. So as it's describing the pigment, I probably can't get this little focus. I'll read it. I'll try to read it. So in the ingredients, it's talking about metallized azo pigment, calcium salt, and the color code is PR48 2. So now that the companies are doing this, you can track down which pigment your eye is responding to, and you can find it good substitutions in other companies' lines. And okay, here's quinacridone PV19 is listed on the fuzzy label. There it was for half a second. Yeah, so all of the pigments that go in, they have, they're identifying what they are. And I think that's really quite helpful also, just because it helps you to keep track of things that could be a bit toxic and avoid them if you need to do that. Metallic. Well, we were swatching some pearlescent ones the other day. Got a new set. Working with some pearlescent over some gansai tambi, which are Japanese paint that's a little bit in between gouache. You can use it in a very solid layer, and you can also dilute it out for some nice washes. So There is a set in the brand name is Kuretake. I'll put a link to it in the comments after this, Brad. There's a set that I saw when I was looking through Dick Blick artist Dick what is it? Dick Blick Materials? Oh, the website. I don't know. It might be on Jackson too, if they carry the Gansai Tambi. But they had a set that they called Graphite Colors, and they were mostly graphite with a hue of a little bit of green, a red, a blue, like an ultramarine blue, and then I think there was an earthy, like a Van Dyke brown, and one other one maybe kind of an onyx color. And once they dry down, you can take a cloth and polish, and there's a little graphite in that ink, and it leaves a shiny area that just looked really fascinating. But I kind of had to limit what I was buying just right off the bat, and I don't work very much in monochromatic stuff, so I skipped that. But I think you might enjoy some of those. What does overwork it mean? Well, when it comes to watercolor, if you can lay down your color with one pass of the brush, there is a spontaneous look to it, and there's a translucency, which is the light reflecting off the whiteness of the paper. When I overwork it, it almost gets a muddy sort of a look to it, and the paper is entirely covered so that you don't have this luminosity that comes through. Freshness is just a characteristic of watercolor paints that people develop that skill over time in working with the paints. Where did the pebble drawings go? So if you can compare these guys that just have one pass through, there is it's mostly just like a luminosity, and then the line goes down with just one pass of the brush. And instead of taking several passes, as soon as you do that, it can deaden the image, and it circumvents one of the natural aspects of watercolor paint. I mean, for a person who is likes to really get the brush in and go over it a bunch of times, my medium really ought to be oil colors, or chalk pastels. You kind of want to work fresh, just with one pass too. Brad, you need to look at your. You are getting past the point where you can joke about not having talent, and I would invite you to take a look at your sketchbook and see the work that you've been doing in the last weeks, because you are well on your way to certainly you are cultivating a talent there. I know. Maya says, "Oh my God, those are some old Cotman tubes." I know. They don't even. I have some Grumbacher ones that don't even list the ingredients. It is wild. And I kept them for such a long time. I just kind of went, "Oh, these were my, like, they were my grandmother's, right?" And like, check out this baby. It doesn't even have ingredients on it. There's no state of California, don't feed this to your kids label. There's no MSDS sheet available on request. Oh, I think this might be in the running for one of the oldest. I had some that are in lead. Yeah, what is this one? Yeah, this just looks late 50s, early 60s on that one. Yeah, so Brad says he's gotten some better brushes. And I'm sorry I'm behind in the chat. I just wanted to kind of catch up with you guys before we wrap it up here. But doesn't it make a huge difference when you get a good brush or one that really works well with the way, like uh, a, a good brush is a really subjective thing. It just depends on how you like to hold the brush, how, your hand-eye coordination, how much, um, because what might be a really responsive brush for one artist could be completely too floppy for another one. PBR7 is burnt umber. Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier is that burnt umber. I think I've got a, well, there's a raw umber, so burnt umber is going to be even darker than that. And that with a little black will get you really in the sepia neighborhood. Uh, oh my goodness. All of it, Brad, the entire blade, or just a good portion of it. That is, I had a friend in college who did that the night before a final for law school, and in law school, your entire grade is based on one test, just the final. So, um, we had to haul him down to the emergency room to get stitches, and he went hobbling in on crutches to take that. Holy cow, how toxic are they? Um, well, I have some cadmium paints that actually have cadmium in them, and I have some paints that are in lead tubes, so I'm gonna say pretty toxic. Oh, is Sophia in here? Hello. Hello. All right, I think I got caught up here. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Paper. The when you upgrade to particularly the all cotton paper, and you see how your paint saturates, like it just holds the paint in a different way, and your colors will be more vibrant. And I almost think, like, rather than upgrade to the full professional artist top of the line watercolor paint, if you upgrade to the medium grade, that's going to get you most of the way there, but then upgrade your paper all the way to cotton, and the quality of your paintings is just going to, you're just going to be shocked at how much better they look. Yeah, Sophie is right. You do have, you've got a good eye for it. I don't think you appreciate just yet how good your eye is. I think if you were to take a drawing class and you were going to sit in there and you watch other artists, and you'll see somebody take a 12 by 18 piece of paper, and they're working in 3 by 4 inches in the corner because they don't have any sense of where to place things on the paper. They haven't developed that yet. Um, yeah, I think you've you've got some skills. You got a lot of raw skills there. So Maya says, it's so funny how we don't believe people who say the brushes and paper are very important and make a huge difference. You don't believe it until you try it, and that is absolutely true. Now, yeah, if I were Brad and I had the discount at the art supply place, I would definitely be stocking the high-end watercolor paper, because um, bit by bit, tube by tube, and you too can become an art supply hoarder like the best of us, the rest of us. Yep. Brad says Maya has helped him out a lot, and I will have to say that I find Maya's work and her Maya-ness to be quite inspiring. Sophia, oh my gosh, her mom was an art teacher. How are you doing? How are things going? I was thinking of you this week, and I was hoping you were doing okay. Yeah, you might check. Sometimes you can get a sheet or two open stock of paper, or even if you can pick up a sheet of something like Stonehenge. It's got the weight, it's got the cotton content. It won't have the sizing that watercolor paper has on it, but it'll still just blow you away how it grabs the color and just reflects back that light and just gives this luminosity to your watercolor that um, you will be delighted. Alrighty, folks. Well, we are sneaking up on the 2 hour mark. Not quite, but getting close there. So I love that we've had some arty chit chat and sharing a little knowledge back and forth. I love to see that. Um, hmm. Yeah, those are. Yeah. Sophia says that they got a card from the home care nurses. Yeah, that process kind of comes in waves, and you never really know. I just remember in the first months after my mom passed, it was like I'd think I would have myself steeled and I'd be doing okay, and then someone would come up and say, "Oh, I knew your mom," and then they'd tell me the stories, and it like it's just there's a lot of firsts that you have to get through and try to maintain your composure, and it does get a little bit easier as time passes, but those are some pretty tender moments that you're in for, and please know that you're in my thoughts. Yeah, no, I remember Brad was talking about he's got an inn where he can get some distressed merchandise from the art supply store at a deep discount, and um, yeah, I'm a little envious. I admit it. One of my first jobs that was not um, I think I was just like a freshman in high school. I got a job in a little art store in town, and um, they used to hire students, and they'd have us bag up stuff for craft supplies, things that had to be counted, bags of sequins and goofy stuff like that, and a discount. But I was so young, I really didn't know what I should invest in. So, um, but yeah, all art is good art. All art making is good art making. I'll put it that way, maybe. Because I know I make some art. It's not good art. Yep. Yeah, I think Brad, if I were you, I'd wait on the sepia and I'd get the paper, especially because I know we can probably get you to mix some paint out of your Cotman set that gets you really close to sepia. Yeah. 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 This reminds me, do you guys know T in Perth, Australia, who is protesting Scientology? If you get a chance, actually, Maya, I will ask you if you can track down T and put her link in the chat. Um, she's in Australia and her family is in Scotland. Her father's in Scotland, and she got news that her dad is in the hospital and not expected to survive, and she has a son who is autistic, and so which is not the big obstacle. The obstacle that she's facing is her son's passport had expired, and she's trying to get home to Scotland before her father passes. So, if you guys could just send out some good thoughts for her, and if you get a chance to um, drop by her page, she's got a community post, and I know that she could really, she's there in Australia. She doesn't have family other than her son there with her, and she's just trying to get the passport paperwork so that she can get a last minute flight from Perth, Australia to Scotland. Um, and I know that's that's a long ways away to be from your family when you're trying to get back to them. So if we could just send out some positive thoughts for T and for everybody who has got some struggles going on. There are, and she was dealing with the consulate or the passport office, and because of the time difference, there was a letter of some kind that she needed to get back from the UK. So it sounded like her last live stream, it sounded like she'd gotten stuff and was going to be able to travel. Because the point about her son was that he did need to travel with her, so. Okay. Alrighty. Don't worry about it, Maya. I'll tell you what I'll do. When these live streams end, they go immediately to private because I haven't been streaming long enough to default set it to go public. But the first thing I do is go back and switch it over. So if you go to my page, I will drop a comment below this post linking to her channel, and we'll do it that way. Yeah, that's what she's at. She's at the embassy and or the whatever the appropriate passport office, and they said they can do it, but what they need is some sort of a letter from somebody in the UK explaining or verifying her emergency circumstances so that they can process his passport quickly. So, yeah, I think she's got the business end of it handled. It's just that that's a 24-hour flight and there's one a day, and yeah, if we could teleport her there to be with her dad, we would all want to do that. Yeah, yeah. Hey, but you know what, Maya? The vertical mode one that I did the other day had 1,200 views, and the horizontal one had 22 views. So, if vertical is getting me to 10,000 overall views in 2 months, I uh, I am okay with that. Right? Brad says, get an OT8 to sort it. Oh, Yikes. Yeah. Well, let's see here. While we are, I'm going to see if I can drop a link here. So even when I am clicking on it, it's giving me channel activity, but it's not giving me go to channel. It'll let me hide or put you in timeout or add you as a moderator, but it won't let me to, well, that is pesky. Yeah, we've had quite a few people cycling through. I've kind of been keeping an eye on that little number up there, so yeah, and I noticed I noticed my outro showed up in the words of somebody else who's now doing an outro, and I thought I I they haven't appeared in chat or said howdy doody, but um, I think we've been getting some watchers. That's okay. Watchers or engagement. I'll take it. Alrighty, guys. I'll let Maya get off to do some life stuff, and everybody. Okay, Brad. I'm interested in that. Is it an app I can download for an Android phone? Yeah. Oh, Maya, I was just like I was listening. I just caught the very tail end of somebody the other day, and I I just it was like, wow, I'd never heard those words from her, but it's something like I always ask you guys to do some art and to be kind to yourselves. I know in this community, I just know that we have a lot of people who have a hard time being kind to themselves, and so I always like to close with that. And I guess if that idea is spreading, that's probably a good thing. But it just gave me a bit of a jolt when I heard it. And I went, oh, well, okay, all right, yeah, kind of wild. Yeah, so Brad's saying that the camo app will help me set the focus here. And I hunted around to see if there's just very little functionality beyond the basics in the YouTube streaming. So um, anyway, there we've said it. Um, the weekend is upon us. I hope that I hope your weekend plans include a little time for making art and uh, and good night. We'll see you next time. Thank you everybody for coming in. I appreciate you. I appreciate it very much. Until next time. Oh, the band-aid finger won't make the X go. Alrighty, we're out.